Jedi Lex, and I am super excited to be sharing my collection with you guys today, so let's jump right into it.
Hello, YouTube. Welcome to another edition of Star Wars Collections and Displays. I'm Jack. As always, we have Jim with us today. We have a very special guest. Jedi Lex is what she's calling herself. I'm going to pass it over to you, Jedi Lex. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your collection.
Gotcha, yeah. So I am primarily just a Star Wars collector, I guess you could figure by the Jedi Lex title. I've been a Star Wars fan pretty much all my life. My dad introduced me to it when I was very young, and then we always like built Legos together and stuff like that. And then when COVID happened, I just had a lot of time on my hands and I started buying stuff and I was like, oh, I want this Lego set and this is cool. So then I started kind of just really getting into the collecting aspect of it over COVID. So I've been collecting since about 2019, so a few years now. And then I think I started my YouTube channel like 2022 and I was like, you know what? I've got a lot of stuff accumulated and I think it's pretty cool. So maybe someone else will think my collection is pretty cool and I can just kind of share my journey, I guess. And it's been fun ever since. I started kind of just primarily with like Funkos and Legos and then doing unboxing videos, and it's kind of just progressed into a lot of things. I do reaction videos, I do, unboxings, reviews. I kind of just talk about news, try to just keep it current. I guess anything Star Wars related, I really just try to talk about and keep my platform open, just to anything related Star Wars. And I do myself have a podcast about collecting. It's called Beyond Tatooine, and I kind of interview other Star Wars collectors one on one. And I talk about, well, I really talk to them about how their love of Star Wars originated, and then we like kind of take a look at their collection. So it's kind of cool that now we'll get to take a look at my collection. So I think that's pretty cool. And then I have a another podcast that I co-host with two other gentlemen who are Star Wars creators, and we just strictly talk about Star Wars Funko Pops. So very busy, and I'm also a full-time student, so I try my best to, keep it current, but it does get a little tough.
What is your area of study?
Nursing school.
Oh,
It's
wow. All right.
almost done. I'll be done in
But you're
August, so it's full-time doing a lot of stuff, but I do enjoy doing this. It kind of is like a stress reliever. It's something I can do that I enjoy and it takes my mind off of it. So it's kind of why I started doing it, and I just look forward to it. I've met a lot of wonderful people, so it's been really fun.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. I certainly wish you all the best with your nursing ventures. You move forward with that. Our first question usually is, what type of stuff are you collecting? And before I ask the question, I'm going to change the question a little bit. The question usually says, is it action figures, vehicles, helmets, lightsabers, and comics? But as I've skimmed through the information that you've sent to us, you collect a lot of different things that I've not seen before and that a lot of other collectors that we've interviewed don't typically collect. For example, I only saw 2 carded figures in everything that you sent to me, and usually that's where the emphasis, that 3 3/4 inch size in the package, or possibly loose, is what most people collect. But I only saw 2 packaged ones.
Yeah. I kind of have my hand in a lot of pots, it seems, I guess you could say. It really started out with Funkos and Legos. I've got like a huge Death Star display that's got a bunch of my Funkos. And then I kind of progressively got into comics. I started collecting comics, and then I was like, you know what? I kind of really enjoy Star Wars books. So then I started collecting Star Wars books, and then I saw some of the guys at like Spice Runners. They have a lot of like the Gentle Giants and sideshow items, and I was like, I don't really have the space for those big, premiere type statues, but there are things that are called mini busts, and I really like those. So I started collecting the mini busts and stuff like that, and I 3D print stuff, and I've accumulated some random items. But yeah, I have a lot of stuff. I mean, some of my smaller stuff, I've got some bag clips that I like to put on my lounge flies. I've got lounge flies, and I really enjoy like art and then challenge coins. Those have been really fun to collect too.
The clips, and I had misinterpreted what those were in the beginning. I thought they were more along the lines of keychains or key
Yeah.
fobs, but at some point I did see in one of your videos you referenced bag clips. So what does a bag clip do?
So they come in like packs essentially, and they're like mystery packs. So you don't know which one you're getting until you open them. So I like that kind of suspense, I guess. And they were like relatively inexpensive. So I just started collecting them, and it's a lot of different characters and stuff, but you get to like put them on your backpack, or you can put them on like your lounge fly and you can interchange them and stuff. I went like super crazy with them because I was like, these are awesome. And then I like custom made my own like little cardboard that I kind of like painted and stuff to match the sets. But yeah, I mean, they're all over the place, but they're really cool.
And something else that I have not seen anybody else collect, and you had quite a collection of them, was what I'll call backpacks.
Yeah, the lounge flies.
Is that lounge flies? Is that what
Yep.
they're referred to
Hmm.
as?
Lounge flies.
And you had quite an assortment of which they're painted or decorated or printed, whichever word, to represent different characters.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm.
And then also you mentioned fig pins, and I did see those in there, but did not understand what they were.
So they're not like the typical like they're pins, like you can stick them on like cardboard or on like a lanyard or anything, but they're definitely a lot bigger, and they're like kind of full character length. So they're
So a
like,
pin, like something I would stick
yeah.
here.
So
Okay.
it's got like usually like two prongs on the back of it. So it's like literally a pin. They're just very big, but you can like there's an app and stuff that you can add them, and there's like rarity to them, but a lot of people usually leave them in the case that it comes with, but you could totally take them out and put them on your lanyard, put them on your backpack. Like it's a pin, but they're just very big pins.
And the package that the pin was in, to me, my
Mhm.
first thought was it looked like something that had been graded and was put into an acrylic case.
Yeah, it's an acrylic case, but it's like with the graded, you can't really open them. With these, you can like kind of pop them off, but the base is nice because it has like a little insert that kind of keeps them upright. But there is a case that you can, take off to get the pin out. But it's a nice little display piece. I started getting into them because I was collecting Rebel stuff. I'm a huge Rebels fan. So anything and everything that I can find that's Rebels related, I'll pick up most of the time. And then they started releasing some other ones, and I was like, oh, that one's cool and that one's cool. And so now I'm just all over the place, I feel like.
And you did mention Funko Pop, and we have talked to some people in the past that have done Funko Pop, and you had a pretty wide selection there. One of the things that I found kind of interesting about Funko Pop, as far as your stuff, is in addition to the characters, which might be in a box or in this case out of a box, but there seem to be scenes that Funko Pop could then be placed into.
Yeah, you can do so recently they've been doing like two packs where you can kind of like pose them together. So like almost like an Anakin versus Dooku where you can have like their lightsabers clash. A lot of people also do like dioramas and stuff like that. Like one of my buddies that I do the popcast with, he's like a photographer of pop, so he's always creating like scenes and taking like amazing images of, which I actually have a few hanging up. But yeah, they come on like a nice base, so they stand very well. They don't fall over. They are bobbleheads, but they're just I don't know. I got into them because my buddies started collecting Funko Pops, but they were really into anime, and I'm not a huge anime girl. But then as soon as I found out they had Star Wars ones, I was like, you know what? I want to go with you guys to cons and go look for pops and stuff, but I want to look for pops that I would like. So I started collecting Star Wars ones.
Interesting. And along the lines of those Funko Pop scenes, there was one that I saw you had the fellows that were on the skiff on
Yes.
his skiff. There was a battle scene between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon. There was the Death Star Funko Pop display. And I have to ask, you referenced that you had made that display yourself.
I did indeed. Not all by myself. I'm not gonna take all the credit. My dad definitely helped me. He's a little bit more crafty, but um some of them, yes, you can pose together. They come as like sets, but they're like individual pieces that you have to purchase. So there's like the Duel of Fates one, so it's got Obi, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul, and you can pose them together. Same thing with like the skiff. It's think it's like 6 different pieces and they all like kind of fit together so it makes like a scene. There's only a handful of those like that are Star Wars related.
Mhm.
But yeah, I started collecting and I used to keep them like down there. And then I had so many that I was like, yep, they are all not going to fit right there. So I need to figure something out. And I was just looking on Pinterest. I wanted to do like a cool Star Wars shelf to display them on. And I saw this tiny Death Star. And I was like, you know what? I can make that. Like I could do that, but have it fit the scale of my wall. So me and my dad sat down and kind of designed it out. I took some measurements and then we picked up some wood at Home Depot. We kind of put it together. I painted it, added some LED lights to the back of it, and then we hung it and it has been there ever since. So
It's
yeah.
very impressive. I mean, not only is it very realistic, but if it's custom made, it was custom made specifically for the Funko Pop collection. And then I also did notice that you had lighting behind it.
Yeah. Yep, I added some LED lights. I kind of use it as like a reading light sometimes, but I wanted some, vibrancy. And I used to like kind of film my videos with that facing, so it'd be just like a nice like background display piece, but it's kind of like awkward where it is. So I've been filming out of my desk now, but it's in the background still, but it's a very cool piece. I get a lot of comments on it. So I made a video about like how I put it together and everything because everyone kind of just assumes I purchased it, but I was like, yeah, no, me and my dad, we measured everything. I made sure it could fit pops in the box and out of the box, and we put it up, and it's probably one of my favorite pieces in my collection.
It's a very impressive item
Thank you.
there, and I compliment both you and your dad for having the forethought to think not only does it hold specifically the loose Funkos, but the box Funkos as well.
Yep.
So hats off to you for that. There was another item that varied a little bit. I've seen other people have pizza boxes and things, but you had a pretty extensive collection of soda pop cans.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
in addition to the soda pop cans, there were characters that either came from the can or the can was made for. Yes?
Yes. So the ones that are right up there, they are a different version of a Funko Pop. They're made by Funko, but they're called like Funko sodas. So it's like a can, and there's like a chance of a chase. It's usually like a 1 in 6. So same thing with like the Funko Pops, where you could get like a common and a chase. Same thing with the sodas, but they come in like a little soda can, and then you like take the top off, and usually they're in like a black bag initially, and then you open them and it has a character and it comes with like a little character pog that like tells you if you have the chase or not. And it's my buddy got me into them and I wish he didn't because I've been on a mission to collect them all, but they're really cool. They have domestic ones and they also have international versions, and usually the color scheme switches. So like the domestic will be blue and then it'll like, or at least for Greedo, let's say, the domestic one is blue, whereas the international one is green. So they kind of have different variations to them as well. Some of them glow in the dark, some of them don't. So it's a different form of a Funko Pop, essentially.
Interesting. So again, my normal questions typically don't apply with the stuff that you've collected, such
Yeah.
as action figures and vehicles. Although I did see some Lego vehicles in there.
Yeah.
I did see lightsabers,
Yep.
and I did see you got a collection of comics as well.
Hmm.
The next question typically would be the scale, which is a reference to the 3 3/4 or the black 6 inch ones or the 12 inch ones. But again, it didn't seem as though you had that. So is there a scale for Funko, or is there some uniform scale that you kind of a look for?
Um, so I try not to go super big, just because space is limited, but I try to get creative with ways I can display stuff. But there are different sizes of Funko Pops. I collect the standard ones that are like 6 inches, but you have some that are like 10 inches or even bigger. I just don't feel the need to have a Funko Pop that big, but there are some cool ones, and I totally get it for the people that do collect. I like anyone that collects Funko Pops, so it's cool. But usually the Funkos are about 6 inches. I do have a few of the TVC figures, but I have them in the cards. I got them at Ross for like $3, and I love Anakin, so I was like, why not? I'll pick them up. But other than that, I don't really do the Black Series or the TVC figures. I think they're really cool. I love seeing them, but I know that is just a rabbit hole that I will go down and not be able to come out of. But yeah, I mean, I would, yeah, I don't really do anything that's, like, too big. I mean, some of my Lego sets are pretty big, but I try not to do, like, huge statues or anything like that. They're usually pretty tiny as comparatively.
And collectively, any idea as to how many pieces you have in your overall collection?
I mean, I did start kind of downsizing my Funko Pop collection. 'Cause when I first got into it, I went crazy. I think I did what every young collector does and just tries to go out there and get every single piece that you could get your hand on. And then I kind of realized as I started running out of space that, some of the items didn't really speak to me anymore, and that I really wanted to focus on things that, I could relate memories to or have things like that. So I did start downsizing, but I think before I did that, I had like 200 Funko Pops. So I've got a lot. I even had to make a TIE fighter shelf to put my inbox ones. So yeah, there was about 200. I don't think I have that many now. Because I did sell off a few, but I I haven't counted how many pieces I have, but there's a lot. There's definitely a lot.
Wow.
Interesting. And then how about a specific series or movie? Is there one that you try to collect? I know you said that it's about sometimes having memories. What
Mhm.
memories do you have as far as growing up with Star Wars?
So I'm a prequels baby. I'm an '01 baby, so I'm definitely very young, comparatively to other collectors. But anything that's kind of prequel related, I really love Anakin. And I got into the Clone Wars a little bit, the animated series. So I really like Ahsoka and that type of stuff, as well as Rebels. So anything that's really prequels, Clone Wars or Ahsoka related, that's usually where I've tended to go, especially with like Rebels and stuff. But I love Anakin, so anything that's like Anakin, Darth Vader, I really like. But yeah, kind of just prequel stuff. I'm not super huge into the sequels. And I do have an appreciation for the OT, but some of the stuff just doesn't speak to me as much as the prequels do. But that's kind of just where I
And
stand.
I'm real curious. I'm 65.
Mhm.
So I saw in 1978 or 77 the original ones, which have a big impression on me. I'm not so much into the latter three and the prequels. I watched episode 3 the other night just to kind of go back and revisit it so I could be more current on what happened in there. And there were things that I saw in that movie that I'd missed the first time. And I mentioned to Jack just yesterday, originally when I saw episode 3, I was just so turned off by the negativity of Anakin that I couldn't get through it. But when I rewatched it the other night, there were things that I saw that for whatever reason I had overlooked when I originally saw it. But my point is, um, if you there's a lot of good old westerns out there, but they were done in, say, the 50s. I can't watch a 1950s or a black and white TV show, and because it just seems draggy and not colorful. And so I guess it's where you started and what you saw at that time is your reference point. And so I can understand that if you were a millennial, for lack of a better description, your first exposure was episodes 1, 2, and 3. That's your reference point.
Yep.
Well, I was actually going to ask that about, you talked earlier, Jedi Lex, about your father kind of bringing you into Star Wars. And I think there's a lot of fathers and family members out there in the community that are trying to bring children into it. What was his process? What did he show you first? How did it all work out?
So I don't remember too much. I really just remember my first memory, like really just sitting down and watching them with him. And I used to love Jar Jar Binks. I know that that's like such a controversial statement,
Okay.
but I really loved that character. And that was really like the first character that I really like clicked with. I was like, this guy is like so funny. Like my little 5-year-old self is just laughing at this guy. He's so clumsy. And a lot of people, especially the older generation, didn't feel that way. They were like, this guy's just so annoying. And I was like, yeah, but I really like him. But I think it's just something my dad really wanted to share with me. And then we progressively just started watching them. And then I watched episode 3, and I think that really hooked me. That was like my favorite movie. We'd watch that every time it came on. And then we started building Legos together. So I don't know what really, I've never actually asked him that, like what brought him to introduce me to Star Wars, but he did. And very thankful for it because I don't know where I would be without it.
Yeah.
But then we did watch some of the original trilogy on like VHS, and I was like, oh, this is like, So it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I really kind of grew to understand the story and kind of look past it being on VHS. And I did get to see Return of the Jedi in theaters last year when they brought it back, and that was really cool. So now that I'm older, I definitely have an appreciation for the original trilogy. When I was younger, I was like, what the heck is this? I gotta push this box in, like this makes no sense. So it was it's pretty cool. But yeah, I gotta ask him that.
Well,
Interesting.
I'm sorry, Jim. I was just going to follow up for a second here. I kind of understand his reasoning of wanting to introduce you to Star Wars. My question was more kind of what you referred to when I asked about like the process that he went through. I would have guessed that he would have started you with the original trilogy, 4, 5, 6, but he said, no, I'm going to introduce you to 1, 2, and 3 to get you kind of hooked in first. That's correct?
He may have introduced me to the first three,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones that I remember are the prequels. Like the
Okay.
first one I really remember watching is Phantom Menace, and it wasn't until after the fact that I kind of remember him slowly introducing me to the OT. He might have showed me those first. I don't remember. I
That
was
those
definitely
didn't
super
connect. No, this is
young.
all good information
Yeah.
for people out there that have, a family, young children.
Mhm.
Maybe the original trilogy is not the one to introduce them to first. Go with 1, 2, and 3. Let them age a little bit and then appreciate it a little bit later. That is very interesting. Jim, you were going to go. I'm sorry.
Well, it may have been a case of just timing. Okay, so I've got this little baby, and oh gosh, episode 1 is going to be coming on. I've seen 4, 5, and 6, but I can introduce my daughter to it now because this is on the TV tonight, or the video rental place had the cassette available, and so that just happened to be where it started.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And since for you it was 1, 2, and 3, and then you might have gone back and saw 4, 5, and 6 just as a reference to what 1, 2, and 3 referred to on occasion, or a grounding or a foundation as to the story.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely was, I think 1999 is when episode 1 came out. Then they
Correct.
had, I think it was like 2003, 2005. So it was definitely in that
Correct.
era. I definitely was too young, I think, at that time to be introduced to it. It wasn't until I was a little bit older, like maybe 5 or 6. But I definitely remember him always telling me, like, he would go to the movies all the time to watch the original trilogy, and then there was just such a long period where they didn't have anything, so I think maybe the timing of when I was born and him introducing it to me was definitely around the time that the prequels came out, so maybe that's what had to kind of do with it, but I'll definitely have to ask him, but I think it's definitely a timing thing per se.
And in regards to your motivation for collecting, what inspired you to want to start collecting Star Wars items, regardless as to which movie it was or which series it was? What got you to start collecting?
So, I always, as I mentioned, built Legos when I was younger with my dad, and then of course I grew up and I was too cool for them and this and that, and I like totally regret it because I'm sure if I kept some of those sets, I'd be balling right now. But kind of, I think as I mentioned backstage a little bit, when COVID happened, I had a lot of downtime. We couldn't go anywhere. School was online. We were all pretty much in our houses, but Amazon was available, and I was like, you know what? I used to really enjoy building Legos. So I'm going to start buying some sets. And I started buying them, and then it kind of progressively, that filled up. And then I was like, I got to find some more places to put my Legos. And then that expanded. And then my mom really likes the botanical Lego sets. So those are kind of like what I get for her for like Mother's Day, or, any of the holidays, her birthday. I'll buy those for her and I'll build them. And it kind of just spiraled from there. I was like, these Legos look cool, but I kind of want something else. And then, as I mentioned, my buddies got into Funkos, so I started buying those up. And I think just having some adult money kind of played into that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy things that make me happy and that I enjoy. And that's kind of where it started. And it hasn't stopped.
I need to interject here for a moment.
Yeah.
Jedi Lex, maybe you can help me here. So
What's up?
I've built a few Legos in the past myself, and I've
Mhm.
always enjoyed them. I wouldn't call myself a collector of them, but at occasions I will build them. Jim has never put together a Lego set. He might have at one point in his life, had just different colored Legos that he just put
That's a
together and made
puzzle.
whatever.
That's a puzzle.
But so I bought him a Lego set. I think it's around like an 80 to 90 piece set. There it is there. Yes.
Still in the box, hasn't been opened yet.
And I said, Jim,
Nice and sealed.
put this together just so you can understand the engineering behind it and kind of marvel at how well these all piece together. He has yet to do it. Jedi Lex, can you refer to that at all? Is there a something about the way they're designed and enjoyment to putting them together?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely I don't know how to like describe it, but I definitely like putting things together and kind of just having that, solitude where I can just kind of put some pieces in front of me and just start clicking and putting them together and it just kind of relaxes me a little bit. They definitely vary in like ages and stuff and how technical they get. So the microfighters are definitely like I guess you could say like an entry level Lego set, but they definitely get very intricate where like you're starting to use Technic and they start moving like R2D2's head up there, like it totally rotates 360. You can pull his antenna out, his like front opens, his leg drops, you can like kind of push him forward. So they get very technical, but I think just like putting things together and kind of being creative, but like with some guidance is kind of just cool and it's always been like a stress reliever. My dad also likes to put puzzles together, so I understand that. That's like me and my dad build Legos and then my sister and my dad do the puzzles, so I get it from both angles.
Someday, Jim.
As a youngster, my dad would buy us models, whether it be an airplane or a car. And I guess I kind of just don't have patience. I had to have the model done at the end of the day. And it just you go into it, you do it, you get it done. There's no reason to drag it on. And maybe life for me now is there's no or not enough downtime to stop and say, okay, I'm going to spend the next 2-3 hours working on a Lego project or something. I've got this to go do or that to go do. I've actually tried lately to sit down and do some reading of some books, but I tend to not get it accomplished very often. Maybe once every 2 weeks on a Monday afternoon, I might find a 2-hour period where I can sit down and read. So one of these days, I promise, Jack.
All right. I think you'll enjoy.
Your collection, it's motivation you mentioned because you enjoy it. So is there any investment aspects of it that appeal to you, or is it just purely enjoyment?
So it really started just enjoyment, and then I learned that things have value. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then I found out about like the Funko app, which lately has been like uh not good, I guess, for a lack of better terms. It fails a lot. The prices aren't like accurate. But I started scanning all my Funko Pops and I was like, oh, this one's worth $5. Oh, this one's worth $10. And I was like, what? Like, this is pretty cool. And then I started like kind of bargaining. I was like, hey man, I think this is only worth 20 bucks and you're asking for 50. Where can we meet, a little bit? So I started kind of doing that, but I do kind of really just still collect for personal enjoyment. There are some valuable items that I do have monetarily, but they are because I really appreciate the character. Like I think my most expensive Funko Pop is a couple $100, but I really like the character Thrawn, so I was like, I have to have that pop. It was like kind of a personal grail. So there are some that are super expensive that I just, on a student budget, I can't ball. But if I do ever win the lottery, you'll know because I'll purchase those pops. But I kind of just really collect for personal enjoyment and stuff like that. It is cool, when I do need to kind of use my collection to fund my collection, that it does have a value aspect to it, but I really kind of just collect for personal fulfillment.
Mhm.
Interesting. And the items that you are collecting, for me, when I was in the midst of collecting all this stuff, it was what could I acquire? The quality wasn't necessarily the issue. Cost to a certain degree was. Okay, so it's got a ruffled package or a ruffled lens on the front of the box, but it's worth less. That means I can get something more over here as well. For you, what is the importance of the items that you're collecting?
So I used to not like be, I guess you could say, aware of that kind of stuff, like whether it had like a dented crease. I never realized like how much that could really, kind of devalue, I guess, the item. But as a young collector, I was just very spontaneous. I was like, oh my gosh, like, look, this one's $5. And then I would get it and like it'd be broken. And I was like, oh, like, this is terrible. Like, I just wasn't really paying attention to those kind of things. And I guess as I've kind of matured in my, what I'm looking for and how I want my collection to look, I've started to pay attention to that kind of stuff. I mean, I do, as you can see, take things out of the box occasionally. There are some that are of value that I don't, they just stay on the box and like, I enjoy them that way. But I have started to pay more attention to that, whether it's in mint condition, whether it's not. If it's not, I'm definitely not going to pay full price for, and I'll talk you out of it, or I just won't purchase it. If it is mint, then and I'm selling it, then I'm going to sell it as a mint item, like I kind of understand now what certain things are worth, but initially it didn't matter to me. I guess I just really was oblivious or naive. But I've kind of come to understand now that I've talked to other collectors and there's fakes out there. I wasn't even aware of that. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is $5. Like there's no way it's fake. So there's definitely some things out there that you kind of learn through the process of it. But I do pay attention to that kind of stuff now, but I used to not. I used to just pick up whatever was cheap and I was like, I just want to, like, oh, that's a deal. Like I'm going to take that. And I just thought I was getting a good deal and I wasn't paying attention. So.
You mentioned the difference between keeping some boxed and some loose. What is the threshold if you're going to keep something boxed versus loose? What price does it have to say, oh, well, this is too valuable now?
So there are like convention exclusives and stuff like that that have like stickers associated to them. Some of the stuff that I pay a lot of money for, I would say like usually over $100. I'll keep it in the box, but there are some that just have like the stickers that aren't worth $100, but because they are stickers and they are mint condition, I don't really want to mess with them. But I like the character, so I'll keep those in box. These ones behind me, they're like maybe 25, max $40. So I'm like okay with it. Some of them, one of them I do have out, it's like the Sith Eyes Anakin, but he's like my favorite pop, so I had to take him out of box. But the other ones at usually $100, I'll keep them in the box.
Got it. Got it. And is there anything that you enjoy, like kind of the box art that comes with some of the different items?
Yeah, I've definitely grown to appreciate the packaging on
Right.
certain items. So I understand, like, especially with the TVC figures, like the cards and stuff, which I kind of attribute to the Funko Pops, because each series has its own type of box art and how they display it, whether it has like, because like in the box, sometimes I'll put like a cardboard piece behind the pop. So that way it kind of pops inside the box.
Mhm.
But there's definitely an art to some of the Funko boxes and the series and stuff, and they've really gotten better with time and the detail that they're putting into it. So I definitely do appreciate the packaging on certain items, but sometimes when you don't take them out of box, you miss certain details of the pop, So there's pluses and negatives to both, but I understand if you want to be an out of box collector through and through, I understand it. If you want to keep it in the box, I understand it. If you want to do both like I do, I understand it. It's your collection.
Sure.
Both as in the loose next to the box.
Yeah.
So the two separate items, as opposed to contained,
Mhm.
both become part of the display.
Yeah, and I have a buddy, he just throws the box out. He doesn't even keep it, just has the pop. And
Hmm.
I'm like, you do you. My boxes are all in the closet because, I never know if I want to put it back in or rotate out what I have. But um yeah, I mean, to each their own, I guess, in a preference kind of aspect. But you do miss out certain things when you don't take them out of box,
I agree.
I guess you could say.
Yeah. Especially
And so,
TVC type stuff with accessories and different things like that. You can't sometimes even see them until you pull them out. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a loose miss.
how long have you been collecting items?
I mean, I started really getting back into building Legos and collecting them. I guess you could say I didn't think it was collecting at first, but as I started acquiring and accumulating, I realized it was kind of termed collecting or hoarding, I guess, as my mom would say, but I don't think it's hoarding, but whatever. I kind of like 2018, 2019, once I graduated high school, I kind of got back into it and I was like, I can't let what other people think of me kind of deter me from what I want to do. And I needed some stress relieving kind of things because I was kind of just going through the life, going into college and things like that and all that stress. I was like, I kind of want something that I can just go to and then COVID hit, so probably 2018, 2019, I started collecting, and then I didn't really start sharing my collection till about like 2020 or no, 2022.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
In regards to the Lego stuff, that also, in addition to the characters, there were what I'll call the scenes. I saw you had a cantina scene. There was
Yep.
a Millennium Falcon. There was a land speeder. One of the interesting things I saw was the trench scene, and even more interesting was the trash compactor room.
Yep. So, I mean, I try to get creative with the space I do have. I really have an appreciation for the artistic aspect of collecting because I think a lot of people don't put two and two together. They think I can just buy the item and that's it. But
Mm.
there is an art to how you display it, whether you're doing it in box, out of box, whether you want to add light, the type of shelving that you use. Are you going to 3D print a diorama to put into it? So I really have an appreciation for the artistic side of collecting and kind of doing the dioramas and my mom works for like a printing company, I guess you could say. So she has access to be able to print me some items when I need. And I was like, "Hey, mom, can you ask so and so to print me these images?" And he printed me out like a bunch of them. And I kind of just started playing around with the set that I have outside. I have like a like kind of just a big display. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to make some scenes and like put certain things together because I have a bunch of Luke items. So I was like, let me just put all these Luke items together and let me put all these Boba Fett's together and kind of just make a cohesive scene, I guess that you could say, so I can enjoy the items together, whether it's like Funko Pops, sodas, or Legos. So I try. It's definitely not the best by any means, but I do try to kind of put things together
Actually,
when
it
I
was
can.
very impressive what I saw.
Oh,
And I
thank you.
kind of wanted to penetrate a little further. You just
Yeah.
said something. My assumption was that those scenes or dioramas in the Lego version
Mhm.
were you bought that scene? You bought it, or you had the background 3D printed?
So I do have a 3D printer, so I do print certain items. I have printed like a Rebels mural and stuff like that. So there are certain things that I can print. Really, the backdrop, like the image behind it, that's like paper. Like it's just like printer paper that the guy printed out for me, like on a big printer. So I wasn't like kind of putting small pages together to make it fit and it be more cohesive. But you can buy Lego sets that you can build and put together, and it kind of displays a scene. So then I
So
wanted to take
the
it.
cantina
Yeah.
scene that you
Mhm.
had, those are pieces that you purchased.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, okay, okay. And the trash compactor scene, was that something that you purchased that?
Yep, I purchased the Lego set, that was I built that, so that's a thing, and the walls even kind of move in and out, and then there is, like Funko does, like, movie moments, so they had that, so I was like, "You know what? Let me put 2 and 2 together," and then I put the trash compactor background up, and that was pretty much it.
Wow. I also noticed that you had really kind of excelled at how you displayed stuff and how it was what it was sitting on and such. The one thing that stood out right away to me was the TIE fighter shelves,
Yeah.
which were really quite interesting. I mean, I've not seen anybody do anything like that yet. So you applied the story of Star Wars to the actual mechanism that you display the items on.
Yep. Yeah, I really try my best. I mean, the TIE Fighter shelves are literally just these shelves, I got them at Home Depot. But I same thing with the Death Star shelf. I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna display these Star Wars items, I want it to feel like it belongs on a Star Wars shelf. Yes, I could hang it up and put it on a basic shelf and just leave them and call it a day. But I was like, it kind of, I feel like enhances the effect of it. As I was saying, some people don't do that. You know, there is just the collecting. I'm just gonna buy these items and that's it. I don't care how they look, but I want it to look appealing. At least to me, I'm very like that, I guess. So I was like, you know what? I've got a bunch of pops. They are not fitting down there anymore. So I got to find ways to kind of maximize my space. So I took the shelves and I was like, I kind of want to make some TIE fighters and kind of just put them together again. Got an idea off Pinterest. I love Pinterest and put them together again with my dad and have those hanging up as well. Those are right above me.
Wow. There was also, I saw there was a bookcase that had what I will call puck lights, or lights that are shallow that sit
Mhm.
underneath the shelf and illuminate the lower shelf. Or were those battery operated, DC operated? I think they changed colors. I saw you've got green and red ones I can see in the background, and they seem to be flickering a little bit.
Yeah, they are battery operated. Initially, I really tried to do like the strip lighting, but I realized that wasn't working. So my buddy was like, "Hey, why don't you try puck lights?" And I bought some puck lights and I love how they look. You can change the color, you could do strobe lights, you could do everything. I think they're just flickering right now because they need new batteries, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I really like lighting up the scene. I think it adds more to it. Again, they're, just the art of displaying your collection. But these ones I did use kind of like the strip lighting and I ran it around. That was a little bit more complicated, but I do really like the puck lights a lot.
And the bookcases themselves, any particular place that they came from?
IKEA. We've just had them. My parents have like we used to have like a playroom where me and my sister could just do whatever. We could play games, card games, like that was just our space. And it's still technically our space, so I just use the bookshelves. We've kind of, through the years transformed what we put on them and um now it's kind of become my bookshelves, I guess you could say. So those portions are mine, so I decorate them kind of how I want to and we'll see what happens when I move out here in a few months.
The shelf that you
Interesting.
have in the back there with the Funko sodas, what is that shelving?
So that is actually a baseball display bat or a baseball bat display case that I got from Michael's. I am very big on like Facebook and joining different collecting groups, especially on Reddit and stuff like that. And one of the guys like posted it one day and I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool. Like I want that." So there's like obviously a place where you have to like take them out because it's supposed to hold the baseball bat, but you can remove them and they fit the sodas and the out of box Funko Pops like perfectly. And at one point in one of the Reddits, I like kind of was holding off because they are a little bit more expensive than I wanted them to be. But the guy posted on some at some point, he was like, "Oh, they're buy one, get three free." So I went and I bought them and I was like, "This is perfect." So now I have a bunch of them.
That's
Buy
awesome.
one, get three free. Wow,
Yeah.
that's quite the deal.
I think
Usually
Yeah.
that
it's the way around.
right.
I was gonna say buy three, get one free, but I was like, "Am I reading this wrong?" So I went over to Michael's, they had them, and I bought the what I could, and I hung them up.
I think that's shows you how many people are buying displays for their baseball bats. If
Yeah.
they advertise it as displays for your Funko Pops, they'd sell out.
Well,
You
I
wouldn't
think
have to
they
put them on
did
sale.
change it.
They
Yeah,
did.
especially
Okay.
on Michael's, they totally changed. They were like started putting action figures inside of it instead of just
Right.
the baseball bat, and I was like, "Yeah, you guys should switch up the marketing because I mean they're perfect. I love them. It keeps it dust free and kind of out of the way. It flips up and down like very nicely, so I definitely really like those."
That's awesome.
I saw that there were some pictures on the wall. I'm just going to refer to them as watercolored paint pictures, but you might have a more specific definition of them. I can see them like behind you right now.
Yeah. So these I've had for a very long time. They're just kind of canvases of like some of my favorite artists. They're so really the only wall that isn't completely Star Wars in my room. But I kind of have always had them. I just kind of enjoy the artwork of it. Same thing why I like the artwork of Star Wars and stuff like that. I do have some art pieces to the right above like some of my Funko Pops. I think I sent you guys like a picture of them, but I try my best to really kind of support small businesses that, create images and artists. Like, so where I get my challenge coins from, those are small businesses. I purchase art, and they even sent me, they look like this. He sent me this like small Ahsoka one. So they're really like bigger images of these of different characters, but I just thought they were like so unique. So I bought like a few prints from them and then got some frames at like Walmart and hung them up. But yeah, I try to just keep it light. But those are, yeah, they're not Star Wars. They're just like album covers.
Jim and I have been going to a few like action figure conventions and different
Just
things
gonna
like
say,
that.
you
Yeah.
bought some at the last show we went
Well,
to.
the last
Mhm.
two shows, anytime that I go, I try to find like the artist person that's there, not selling figures or something like that. And I always try to support them by something and yeah, have it in different places around the house.
Yeah.
So there were two other pictures that I noticed in your stuff. Both of them were autograph pictures. One was a photo of you and Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
That was signed specifically to you.
So that one isn't signed. It was just an image. I went to MegaCon at the beginning of February, and as I mentioned, I grew up watching the prequels, and I always Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie. So as soon as I learned he was going to MegaCon, I was like, this is my opportunity to meet him. Like I want to do this, and my dad was so excited for me. I told him I finally got tickets and stuff because initially they sold out immediately. I was in class when they opened up, and I didn't realize it, and they sold out, and I was like super upset. And then finally my buddy texted me, he was like, "Hey, they opened up some more tickets." So I was able to get in on it. And then I told my dad, and he was like, "This is so exciting." And then like while I was waiting in the line, I was texting him. I was like, "I'm so nervous, like I'm about to meet him." And he was like, "This is your opportunity. Like you've looked up to this character and Hayden like as an actor, like you've just had such an affinity for this character and the person that he is. Like this is." He was so excited for me. So I did get to get a picture with him. It was a brief moment, but I was utterly stunned to speak, but it was amazing. I kind of teared up a little bit. But I do have some autographed items from some other like people. My local, I guess you could say they're an arcade. They host like an annual Star Wars event that they kind of had me help out with a little bit. So I did trivia. So part of doing that, I was able to meet some of the like stunt doubles that they brought in. So they signed some art for me. I've got some signed Funko Pops from certain characters, and kind of I've started collecting these plaques for things that I like. Some characters don't have Funko Pops of them, so I was like, I kind of want to have a little plaque sign. So I've been doing those. They're relatively inexpensive and they display very nicely. So I do have a few signed items and a few pictures of some people.
What was the conversation that you had with Anakin? I know you kind of clammed up a little bit. What did you tell
Yeah.
Hayden?
Um, he looked at me, he like reached out his hand, and I was just like, and then he was like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I am so good." Like, he's like, "I'm so happy to see you. Like, thank you for coming." And then he like kind of just grabbed me. The flash went off, and then the lady yelled and was like, "Keep moving." And I was like, "Okay." And that was it. And I just looked at him, and as soon as I got out of like the booth, because they make you put everything away and stuff, and then I walked out, and as soon as I got the picture on my phone, because I paid like they print it out for you, but I paid like the extra $10, like whatever, to have the JPEG image sent to me, and I got the email on my phone, and as soon as I saw it, I cried. I was crying out to the bus, like as I was walking out of the convention. I was like, I can't believe that happened. I wish I didn't clam up as much. I mean, they definitely were like pushing us through, but I was just in the moment, I guess you could say.
That's
Wow,
awesome.
that's
Yeah,
pretty
I'm so
special.
happy for you. Very special.
Me and Jack had gone to a couple of shows, and one of them, there was a room that they had different actors from different shows and such.
Yeah.
And there was one guy, I don't think I ever did figure out which character it was, but there was a fan who had a cart with all kinds of props, and he actually had a script that he had given to the guy, and they acted out a particular scene standing there. And I just thought, oh my God. And what was even funnier was the next 2 or 3 people that were in line was another young lady. She was just going crazy because she was almost up to the front to meet this person. It was almost more entertaining watching the people waiting in line and seeing the excitement that they had than it was once they actually got up there. And we just stood back and watched the whole thing for quite a while. It was very entertaining.
Yeah, it wasn't Star Wars related. It was some sort of anime that we're not familiar with. But the guy had written a script, and with the character, and the guy that was actor of that character was there, and he's like, "Will you read the script with me?" And he's like, "Sure." And so they like acted out like a 3-minute script. It was crazy.
Yeah, that is cool.
We also went to a show in Pasadena. It was a toy show. And by far the biggest line was the people waiting in line for, was it Power Rangers?
The Power Rangers were there, but the guy that played Flash Gordon, he had a pretty big line as well.
Yeah. But we also talked about that. There was a weird kind of uncomfortable feeling there, like you, Lexi, with being kind of rushed through there. As I stood back and watched the Flash Gordon guy, there was one of his assistants that kind of tried to I don't know if he's trying to encourage me to get involved or encourage me to move along, but there was this weird feeling of don't spend too much time looking because somebody's going to charge you for that time, which was kind of an awkward kind of feeling. But so we just kind of stood back a little bit, which does bring me now to my next question about another picture that you had up there, an autograph picture. It was a Darth Vader, and I think the fellow's name was, I wrote it down here, and I'm going to try to quickly find it. Spencer Wilds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think you said he was the Darth Vader in Rogue One.
Yes. Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Last May 4th, he came to like a local comic shop. So I went and I like kind of waited in line, got to meet him, got a picture, autograph with him, and yeah, that's where that came from essentially.
And that was signed specifically to you then,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yep.
pretty special. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack. You did an interview with a Darth Vader stunt or actor, and did I misunderstand it that he was the guy who was in Rogue One, or was he the one in Boba Fett?
Okay, so the stunt double I talked to, his name is Iad, and he was the stunt double for Boba Fett in the book of Boba Fett.
Oh, okay, okay. He
But
wasn't
Jim,
the
you and
Darth Vader
I,
guy.
when we were in Pasadena, Spencer
Yes.
was there. And we walked by him, and that's the guy we interacted with.
He reached out to us too.
He was like, "What are you guys talking about?"
Yes,
and brought us
okay.
over in the
So
conversation. We
there
didn't have
makes
to
a
wait in
connection
line.
there.
Yeah, so that's the same gentleman that we spoke to. I think he's
Okay,
Australian.
okay.
That Jedi Lex now has met as well. So that's interesting. We all have a little bit of a connection with them.
Wow, wow.
And Spencer, when we were talking to him, he said he would be willing to come on and do an interview with us as well. So, not a Star Wars Collections and Displays interview, but more of a Jack in the Box interview. But we can definitely set that up.
Yeah.
So kind of finalizing your display there, how is it arranged? Is it arranged by age, by episode, by character, by scene?
I guess it depends on where you kind of look. There's no rhyme or reason to it, I guess. Here specifically with my Legos, I kind of have them in like color scheme order. With my pops, I tried to do kind of like related pops. So I have like a all Sith shelf, I have like an all Jedi shelf, I've got like my bounty hunters. So that's kind of how I have that set up, but there's really kind of no rhyme or reason because again, I've sold some, put some up and moved it around out where I have the other bookshelf. That's kind of just arranged by scene, by well, really by like character, I guess you could say, like all character related items for that. Like let's say Boba Fett are there, whether it's a Lego, soda, Funko, it's there. But yeah, there's really no rhyme or reason to what's going on in here. Yeah.
And do you have the ability to expand your collection?
Yeah, I do. I think once I get my own space though, I can definitely make it like kind of like a Star Wars apartment, I guess you could say, and kind of really spread my wings out because I am limited to kind of where I am now, but I do try to make the most out of it. And again, I've sold some things to kind of be able to put some money towards some other items that I do really want. So it's a game. Someone that gave me advice once on my podcast was he said you gotta use your collection to fund your collection, and I was like, solid. I like that.
That is good. And what are your sources when you go to buy something? What places are you going to?
So over COVID specifically, when I really got into collecting, I was huge on like Whatnot. So it's like kind of like an auction bidding app kind of thing. So different sellers run like shows, I guess you could say, and as you go into them, it I guess what can you say, they like put items up specifically. So like let's say they put up one Funko Pop, they'll put it up for like 30 minutes and then you can bid on the price. So I kind of was like gambling, I guess you could say, a little bit on there, trying to win some auctions per se. But then once everything kind of went back a little bit to normal, I was able to start going to like conventions and stuff like that. So I was definitely very big and doing the conventions and stuff like that. But now I kind of go more for the panels and to meet people more than like the collecting aspect of it because I have come to realize they do price gouge a lot at these conventions and stuff like that. And I have a few local like toy shops and comic stores that I go to like on the regular. But yeah, mostly online, I think.
And I apologize. I know you're on the East Coast, but what is local? Where are you from exactly?
I'm in West Palm, Florida,
Oh, down in Florida. Okay, gotcha.
South Florida.
Yeah.
And I know you referenced Amazon in there at one time, but I've not heard you say anything like Hasbro Pulse or Earth something. And of course, my favorite, which is eBay.
Yeah, I do eBay occasionally. Like, I guess for some of my books that I've gotten, I have gotten them off eBay, but I just am able to find like everything that I really need on Whatnot or Facebook Marketplace. Occasionally, I'll do that. But Whatnot has like a bunch of stuff. Like, you can type in anything, whether it's shoes, books, comics, statues. I'm sure there's a seller on there that has it. And they usually do, my favorite is when they do like dollar starts. So they'll start an item for like $1 and you can bid on it and see if you can get it for cheaper than what it is, and usually you can, so kind of like that aspect. But I think COVID kind of changed the game for a lot of collectors, as you could kind of just purchase things on Amazon. They're doing a lot of deals through Amazon. You could purchase through eBay. You don't really have to go anywhere to kind of have the thrill of toy hunting, which I know a lot of people enjoy. I do enjoy it, but if I don't have to go anywhere and I can just lay in bed and order some stuff, I'm gonna do that, I think. So yeah.
I find the toy stores of I'll go with Jack to visit them, and that's always kind of fun for two reasons. One, three reasons really. One, I'm outdoors, away from home, not sitting inside the house, so it's a social event for me. Number two, I'm with my friend, and we are able to chat and chuckle and discuss things. And then you tend to see things that you maybe don't normally see online, or even if you saw the item online, you might not notice the little idiosyncrasies about it or the uniqueness about it. And we'll have conversations. And then, of course, you ask questions, or the salesperson comes along and adds a little bit of information to it as well. In regards to your collection, I think you mentioned your sister does some collection. You mentioned your mom does some collection. Who is the collector in the house?
I definitely am. I don't think my mom considers herself a collector, but I mean, she keeps most of her Lego sets like in her office and stuff, so she has like a whole arrangement of Legos and stuff. And I try to like, she doesn't really have a green thumb. Sorry if you're watching this, mom. She doesn't have a green thumb by any means. And the good thing about Legos is you can't kill them and they'll stay alive forever. So I kind of just try to make them like, I'll put them in like flower vases and stuff for her and like try to kind of make them look nice. So she brings them to her office and she has those displayed there. I don't think she considers herself a collector. My sister does. As any younger sibling, they do try to like connect with the older siblings. So that was kind of my sister's reasoning, but she's not as big into Star Wars as I am, but she loves Stitch. So kind of what I did with my friends where they were collecting anime, I was like, I'm gonna find something that I like but can still relate. So I collected Star Wars. So my sister collects Stitch. So now when we go to conventions and stuff, I'll be looking for Star Wars pops and she'll be looking for Stitch pops. She does collect Stitch. She does consider herself a mild collector. My mom does not, but I am the collector of the household.
And with regards to your collecting, is it an obsessive collection, a compulsive collection? Are you budgeted? Are you under control? Are you out of control?
Um, if you asked me this question a couple years ago when I first started, I was definitely out of control, very impulsive. I would just buy whatever because I was like, I gotta have it all. Recently, I've really slowed down in my collecting. I mean, if you like even scroll just through my YouTube, which I occasionally do, I was doing unboxing videos like every day. Like I always had something because I was just buying and buying and buying. And I was, of course, looking for content. And I guess why I've kind of like spread my wings a little bit on YouTube is I realized I don't have to buy things and do unboxings to make content that, I enjoy making. I can do other things, whether it's just talking or just chatting, reviewing certain things. So I've really slowed down in my collecting and what I'm looking for in my collection. So I mean, I think anyone is budgeted in life per se, especially kind of right now. I mean, I don't consider myself budgeted, but I am a student, so it is tough. But yeah, I mean, I definitely have become a little bit more reserved, but earlier in my collecting days, I was very spontaneous and I would just buy whatever.
Who sees your collection?
A lot. Most of my friends, they all come look at it. I've showed it to, people on Facebook and stuff like that. A lot of my friends and family have seen it. So, I mean, I don't really, I think a lot of people have seen it, honestly. I've shared it. I've done my room tours. I'm always filming in here with different angles and stuff like that. So I think a lot of like my subs and fellow like content creators have seen it. So it's been pretty cool. But there aren't so many that are like locally around me that have come and like seen it.
And those who are not within, we'll call it the Star Wars universe, when they do come to see it, what do they say?
There's usually like a long pause with their mouth open occasionally. I mean, my cousins were actually just down here from out of the state, and they've like seen on YouTube. They watch my videos and support me, like especially through Facebook and stuff. So they've kind of seen my collection grow and kind of how I've expanded like in the creating world. But they were just down visiting and they came in and like actually saw it in person for the first time and their jaw was on the floor and they were like, what the? And I was like, yeah, I mean, they're big into Harry Potter, so they have a whole bunch of Harry Potter stuff around their house. So I don't get why there was such like a gasp, I guess you could say, but they were definitely a little bit shook.
I had a advertising lady come over here the other day to drop off a copy of her magazine so I could see it, and I thought, okay, well, not that many people come to the house, so I'll give her the tour. And we
Mhm.
start in the living room with all the GI Joes, and work my way down the hallway with the Hot Wheels, and then into the office with the monkeys, the Batman, the Superman, the Beatles, blah blah blah. And then I kind of saved the Star Wars room for last, and I kind of preset it up where the door was predominantly closed with the light off. And I said, okay, I just want to open this door and turn the light on, and I'm going to look back at your reaction. And I did so and turned the switch on, and she like, you have a store in here.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
I
I
just
mean,
can't believe it. And she says, can I take a picture? And I said, sure. She says, I want to show my son. And the next time that we corresponded via email, she said she showed her son the picture. He was like, oh my gosh, mom.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think more people see it through pictures and images and stuff like that than they do in person because it is like my home and stuff like that. So if we're not really like super close and stuff, that's why I kind of just contain it to here, especially when I'm like filmmaking and stuff like that. I don't like to share too much of like my outside life. But I mean, a lot of people have seen it through images and videos and stuff, but really only like my close friends and family are like in my home, especially in my room and stuff like that. So.
Do you have like a favorite item for yourself, or maybe even a showcase item that you definitely want to show people when they come to see the collection?
Um, Usually my lightsabers are a big hit. They're nothing crazy. They're by no means replicas, but I think a lot of people are like shocked by them because not everybody has a lightsaber, especially if you're not a Star Wars fan. They're like, what is this thing? And then they start moving it around. So that's always like a cool little piece to show off. But I feel like every person that I've showed it, they're always drawn to like their own kind of interest. Like some of them that are Lego fans will be like, oh my God, look at all your Legos. But I think recently it's really been the picture of me and Hayden. I think that's been like the topic of discussion because I have it like right over my desk so that way I could just stare at it. But yeah, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, is that Hayden?" I'm like, "Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, it
Yep.
is."
That's awesome. And then I think you'd said earlier that Phantom Menace was kind of your favorite Star Wars movie. Is that correct? To say that, or is there a different
Revenge of
one?
the Sith.
Revenge of the
Phantom
Sith
Menace,
is number.
yeah,
Okay,
Revenge of
right.
the Sith, episode 3 is definitely my favorite. I think Phantom Menace is like really the first one I remember watching
And
though.
okay, that was the first one that got you in. Why Revenge of the Sith? Why is that one your favorite?
Because I always was like fascinated by Anakin's like turn. Like I feel like that's really the pinnacle of his story. You grow. Well, I really kind of grew up with him as I was watching these videos. He started as a young boy in Phantom Menace, where you're introduced to him. Then you see everything that he goes through in Attack of the Clones, and then again in Revenge of the Sith, he's just continuously getting beat down. He's taken away from his mom. They don't want to train him as a Jedi. Then they don't want to make him a master. He can't really be with the woman that he loves because it's against the code. So he's getting hit left and right. And then you kind of see what leads to his turn. And then you do get to see him as Darth Vader, which I always thought was like shocking. I was like, no way he's Vader. But, I just kind of really enjoyed kind of seeing that transition from him. I feel like that's the most dynamic character storyline that I've ever seen, even to this day. But even just really the battle scene on Mustafar between him and Obi-Wan, that was always like really what drew me in. Like I could just watch that scene on repeat.
Interesting. And what about the Star Wars series that are now on like Disney Plus? There's a new one coming out, I think, just this week called The Acolyte. Any excitement, any appreciation for the series?
Oh, 100%. I love any Star Wars that comes out. I really try to voice being positive about anything that we get. I appreciate any Star Wars that comes out. There's a lot of hate surrounding the Acolyte, which I've talked about multiple times, which I don't understand because we haven't even seen it yet. It doesn't come out until Tuesday. Once I've watched it and I really digested it, then I'll kind of make an opinion. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the sequels, I'm not just consistently hating on it, you know, but I'm very excited for the Acolyte. I think it's going to be really cool to see more lightsabers, kind of see the High Republic outside of books and comics and stuff. We're getting a new Sith character. I think it's going to be really interesting. And plus, I love like murder mystery type things, and I think that's what this is kind of going to be, but in Star Wars form. So it's like two of my favorite things. But I'm a huge fan of a lot of the shows. I really liked Bad Batch. I loved the Clone Wars. I liked Mandalorian. Season 3 wasn't my favorite, but there are, you know, a lot of positives that came out of that show. I think that show really reinvigorated a lot of people's love for Star Wars again. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the shows, animated, live action. Ahsoka was amazing. So, I
Mhm.
love all those kind of things.
Okay. Yeah, you hit most of them. Book of Boba Fett, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, you didn't mention those, but it sounds like you appreciate Star Wars. And so if it's Star Wars related, you're going to appreciate
Yeah. I
it.
always try to.
Andor.
Mhm.
So, unpopular opinion, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I kind of enjoyed it. I think it was a slow burn type of thing, but it was different. I think that's why people didn't like it. You didn't see lightsabers. There wasn't all this kind of stuff. It was really a different side of Star Wars that you don't typically see. Do I need to watch it again? No. Am I going to watch season 3 or season 2? Yes. You know, it's just interesting. And then the end kind of scene where you see everything that was leading up to that, he's pretty much building what kills him essentially is kind of crazy to me. There are some scenes in Boba Fett that I could care less for, I guess you could say, but overall it was really cool to see Tamora Morrison back on screen, to see more of Boba Fett. Same thing with the Kenobi show. There are pieces that I didn't need, but we got to see Ewan McGregor and Hayden back on screen. That end battle between the two of them was phenomenal. Like we got to see Hayden in the Anakin suit. Same thing with Ahsoka. He came back. Episode 5 was like earth shattering to me. That was amazing. So I don't know. I mean, there are pieces I don't mind of certain things, but overall, I loved every series that has come out.
I appreciate that positivity. I think that's
Yeah.
healthy in the Star Wars world. So thank you for that.
There were two things I wanted to talk about briefly. One, I'd made a note, and you alluded a few times to it, but part of your collection is those lightsabers, of which they're very not just a thing that turns a fluorescent stick on at the end. They do tricks, for lack of a better description.
They do. Yep. It takes some skill. I mean, I used to do like taekwondo when I was younger, so I'm used to kind of moving things around, so it comes a little bit naturally, I guess you could say to me. There are some things that take some practice. I'm not nearly as good as some of these other creators that are like really just, you know, saber spinners, I guess you could say. But I mean, I can hold my own spinning around and kind of teaching some stuff. I could do the Obi Annie and stuff like that, but they're by no means like replicas. They're, you know, pretty inexpensive, but I guess it's hard to say because lightsabers are kind of expensive. But I think of, you know, the sabers that are out there, they're on the less expensive side. But yeah, I love them. I always wanted to have a saber when I was younger. I had the ones that you could like flick out and they would like kind of shoot, but now I have one that lights up, changes colors, has sound fonts, and you know, they're pretty durable. So yeah, I've only got those three, but I do enjoy them.
And with regards to how stuff is displayed, those lightsabers had their own little unique holder, almost I don't want to call it a cup holder, but can you tell me more about it?
I mean, you're pretty spot on. They are cup holders
Okay.
essentially. I mean, that's what they look like. So I saw on Reddit, of course, some guy was using these broom holders I guess you could say, on Amazon that were like kind of adhesive that you could stick on and you could like put them in and it
Right.
like clipped and hold them. And
Yeah.
they worked for a while until the adhesive stopped working. And I would come home and I'd open my door and like knock the sabers. They were on the floor. And I was like, okay, I gotta change this up. I can't have these pieces that are kind of expensive dropping on the floor consistently. And like, what if they break or something? So I went on Amazon and I found they had like these packs. So they're kind of like this. This part is like flat and then it hooks into the wall so you can screw it into the wall. And then the top is literally like a cup holder. So you sink it in and then there's like a little clip that you can put a little bit higher up and then you clip like the blade, I guess, in, but the hilt kind of just sits in a cup holder type thing.
Hmm. Yeah, it was
Interesting.
quite unique, I thought.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite character?
Um, Anakin
I was just gonna
Anakin
say it
has
has to be
always
Anakin.
yeah, Anakin's always been my guy ever since I was young. But then as a teenager and stuff, I always still loved Star Wars. I just wasn't as into it, but I would watch the Clone Wars and stuff, and I really grew to love the character of Ahsoka. It was a young female. She was a Jedi. She was strong, independent. She was going through her own stuff, and as I always say, I was going through school and doing homework, which she wasn't due because she was obviously, fighting battles, but we were kind of just going through our own trials and tribulations, similar in age. So I really kind of grew to resonate with her. So it was really cool to see her come to live action. So I don't want to place one over the other. I've always had more I've had a longer love for Anakin than I have of Ahsoka, but I do deeply care for both of those characters in their own individual way. So I don't want to put one over the other, but those I would say are my two favorite.
And in regards to the character of Anakin, is it just the storyline of Anakin, or is it young Anakin versus older Anakin?
I think it's really the storyline. I know a lot of people didn't like Jake Lloyd as young Anakin. I never minded him. I like anything that was prequels related, I loved. I love Jar Jar Binks. I love Ahmed Best. I love Jake Lloyd. I thought he played a phenomenal young Anakin. So even if it was like Jake Lloyd playing it or Hayden Christensen, I just loved the character. I don't know if maybe I just thought Hayden was like attractive or whatever, but I just really loved his character, like how his acting I get at
Yeah.
points people didn't like, but I didn't care. I really loved the character and everything he was going through. He was young, spontaneous. He was clearly veering away from the typical Jedi line, but in his own way, like in when he jumped out, I think it was Attack of the Clones, he just like jumped out of the speeder and was like falling. I was like, this is crazy. So his storyline is very dynamic, but I've always just loved the character and the actor. So I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I really like that character.
Interesting. Very good answer, too. My final question, what advice would you have for other collectors?
So this is actually a question I just started asking on my podcast. Um, I think patience is a really big thing. You don't have to buy the first thing that you see, and most of the time the prices will drop. Most of the time, probably 8 out of 10 times. So just be patient. You don't have to buy the first thing that you see, and just because you think it's a good deal at this time, in a couple months there might be a better deal that comes up. So just be patient. That's one thing I could say. And then just really collect what you love. If you want to be a completionist, that's fine, but collect what you love. It doesn't have to be memories. I like to attribute certain things to memory, but just be patient, collect what you love what you collect, and just do that.
I'd like to give you the opportunity to plug your YouTube channel. And the comment I wanted to make along with that is you have 618 subscribers, 275 videos. You are working at putting a lot of content out there.
Yes, I really do try. It's something that I love doing, so I try to just, be consistent. I'm not nearly as repetitive as I was at the beginning, but I do try to now be consistent and post at least 2 to 3 times a week. But, you know, I was posting like every day. I was like, I have to be posting, I have to be posting. And I realized I was really overworking myself and burning myself out. And it was kind of starting to feel like a second job rather than, I had to really kind of remember the reason why I started it is because I enjoyed doing it. So I kind of had to change what I was doing a little bit, but I still try to put out content. I have my podcast every Thursday, and then we go live every Saturday. But it's pretty much just Jedi Lex or Jedi.Lex or _Lex pretty much every social media, I guess, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I kind of just do everything, all things Star Wars. I'm going to start doing the reaction videos to The Acolyte, my podcast, as I mentioned, and yeah, just try to keep it light and fresh.
That's great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for participating with us. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I remember reaching out and it took me a while to get back to you guys, but I'm glad I finally did and we were able to do this because it was a great time. I've been watching your videos and stuff for a very long time and I was like, it would be cool to show my collection off and I finally got to do that. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jedi Lex. I thought this was a great interview, a lot of new information that we haven't heard about in the past. So thank you for opening those doors. I will remind everyone out there, if you want to go ahead and like this video, if you've made it this far into the video, obviously there's something that you like about this. So go ahead and give us that like, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to Jedi Lex's channel. Obviously in the description of this video, I'll put all of your different links and everything in there. So just go down to the description. You can find everything right there. Jedi Lex, again, thank you very much. Jim, great job with the interview. As I always like to end these, may the force be with you.